Rep's Pepin Fast Series adjustable dumbbells have been the most hyped equipment release I've seen in years. Donned as the best adjustable dumbbell well before they were ever released, they're supposed to be one of the heaviest, most durable, and refined options on the market. But can they really solve all the problems that have plagued adjustables for so long? Are they actually quick to adjust? Are they really as compact as a fixed dumbbell? And will they last if you accidentally drop them off your roof while you're working up there and trying to get some curls in? Okay, maybe that one's a bit much, but I've drop tested every dumbbell we've ever reviewed. I've done teardowns on all of them as well, because how much do you really know about something if you don't know what's inside? That's why I've cut bumpers in half and taken apart every barbell I've ever owned. That, or I've reached unhealthy levels of skepticism, but this video isn't about me. If it were, I'd ask you to please use our affiliate links if you decide to purchase any of the dumbbells we're about to talk about, because as you can probably tell, I might be good at breaking things, but I'm not so good at saving money, and it's your support that helps me keep doing what I do. In this review, we're going to make some comparisons to other options, and I'll let you know just how good these really are. But if you came here to watch me tell you they're the greatest thing ever, just know there's a few things I don't love about them, and I've got some criticisms. The Rep X Pepin Fast Series adjustable dumbbells, which is a mouthful, so we're just going to call them the Repins, came about from a collaboration between Rep and David Pepin, who invented these and was making the originals by hand up in Canada. This collaboration is an absolute power move by Rep, not only because it's awesome seeing them work with a small business, but it fills a need of Rep being able to offer a high-end adjustable dumbbell that goes heavy. Also, by making some improvements over the original, lowering the price from what was originally $2,000 before you added on shipping, and tweaking things so that these can be mass produced, this collaboration brings these to the masses. But David Pepin isn't making them by hand anymore. They're made in a factory overseas. That's one of the ways they got costs down. The first thing that sticks out about the Repins, besides their sleek all-metal design, is their maximum weight. These start at 10 pounds. That's one of the changes Rep made to them. By making these head plates out of aluminum, they were able to get the starting weight down from the 20 pounds of the original. By using the magnetic pop pin rail adjustment system and the adder weights, you can adjust them in 5-pound increments up to 125 pounds. Most other popular adjustable dumbbells max out around 80, 90, or maybe even 100 pounds. So if you're sick of trying to make your old adjustables work so you can maintain your status as the neighborhood alpha and looking for a heavier option, these may be for you. We're going to spend some time comparing this adjustment system to others and talk about some issues I've got with the Repins in a bit, but you don't have to buy the full 125-pound set. The Repins are expandable. They're available at 85 pounds, 105 pounds, and of course, 125 pounds. No matter which set you buy, you'll get the same cradle. The only difference between the sets is how many plates it comes with. So if you don't need the full weight yet, you can save some money now and upgrade later. All you have to do is use our link to buy more plates, pop out the screws, move the bracket back, and you're ready to go. Now, don't go thinking I've glossed over the price. Yes, starting at $1,000 shipped for the 85-pound set and going up to $1,400 for the 125-pound set I've got here, these are more expensive than many other options. I'd also argue they're better made too, but the higher the price, the higher the expectations. And in fairness, some of those alternatives have their own advantages over the Repins. That's why I've been collecting so many of them, to make a huge dumbbell comparison video. So subscribe so you don't miss it. Not sure what I mean about advantages? Well, Iron Master's Quick Locks, for example, can go up to 180 pounds with their heavy handle kit. TrueLap offers smaller, balanced weight increments, and they, like Newellbelt and Snowed, have debatably a quicker and simpler weight change system. Looking at a few of those, you'll notice some very obvious similarities, but having done teardowns on all of them for our reviews, I've found on the inside they're actually quite different. Nothing is like the Pepins though. This is the type of originality and innovation that forces others to evolve. At first, I thought there was no real point doing a teardown on these. You can basically see all the components already, but my curiosity got the best of me. I mean, is the pin adjustment system really gonna last? And can this single rod really support all that weight when these are at their max? Sure, I could take their word for it, but everything a company puts out is an advertisement. You can't review your own products, but I gotta give them credit for publishing the Repins failing their drop tests. But you know, I still had to take them apart, and I found some pretty clever details along the way. The heart of the Repins is this magnetic pop pin rail slider. This is the only moving part and the only thing that I thought could potentially fail on these. Everything on these is bolted together. The rails bolt to the head plate, as does the dovetail joint that keeps the plates locked onto the dumbbell once the rail slides out to engage them. The Repins are constructed entirely of metal, meaning there's no plastic parts that will wear down and no needlessly complex and intricate internal mechanisms that can fail like on Dumbbells. Actually, in many ways, these are the anti-Dumbbell. The simplicity and transparency of the design is the beauty of it. Less parts, less places to fail. And as you'll see with our drop tests, you'd really have to try to break these things. But how well does it all work, and will the adjustment system hold up over time? Well, that's the genius of Pepin's design. There's a steel rod that slides inside the welded together rails. The rod gets locked in place and physically can't move when you push in the magnetic pop pin. The pin itself sits inside the steel rod and doesn't make contact with anything that could wear it down. This satisfying clicking noise is actually from a steel ball bearing sitting on a spring, and as it clicks into place, it aligns the pin for the next weight increment. Even the locking pin is ridiculously simple. It's basically a bolt that sandwiches a magnet between two washers, and when you press it in, that magnet forces the pin into place and holds it there. The entire thing is as simple as possible. And since the rail and pin are directly connected, there's no gears or other systems in between that could break. It also means these can work for drop sets because unlike with many other adjustables, you don't need the cradle to change the weight. Just one note there, if you've got a little guy riding around on a truck in your gym, he will be able to knock these plates over. Ask me how I know. But the cradle just holds the plates for you, so you can set these anywhere, make your weight change, and you're good to go. The Repins rival something like power blocks in how straightforward the design is. These dumbbells could realistically last forever. Overall, the Repins are fantastic, even if not perfect. Here's what I mean. The build quality is outstanding. These are beautiful and have to be the best made adjustables I've used. Everything from the black powder coat, the nickel plated handles, and laser etched weight markings on the Cerakote rails look sleek and clean. Switching to a black Cerakote for the rails so that the weights were easier to read is a change Rep made to the Repins. And they definitely are easier to see, but, and this is a bit of a nitpick, but for this kind of money I'm allowed to, some of my weight markings are ever so slightly off center of the pin. And while nobody ever accused me of being too smart, when I'm quickly swapping weights between, let's say, my wife and I have to change the 4 rails, I find myself having to double check I'm in the right hole because there's been a few times where I've lined things up wrong and selected the wrong weight. That being said, it is easy to change weights. It's just not as straightforward as your typical wrist twist system. There are a ton of subtle design elements that make these a very polished product. Things like the chamfered or angled edge of the head plate, which makes exercises where you're holding the dumbbell head instead of the handle more comfortable, like goblet squats. It also means your forearm isn't getting banged up on a sharp edge as you reach in to lift them. These plates are CNC machined and very accurate. I actually got sick of weighing them because they were all dead on 5 pounds, but Rep has gone so far as to angle the top and lead edge of each plate to help make the dumbbell easier to get back into the cradle, which is super helpful when I've just finished curling the full stack and have to put them back down. If you've fiddled with other cradle-style dumbbells, the worst part of them is often getting them lined up and back into the cradle. With the Repins, this long steel dovetail is not only more durable than the tiny plastic ones many companies use, but they also make lining everything up much easier. The cradle, just like the dumbbells, is completely metal except for the UHMW strip on the inside, so your plates aren't murdering the finish when you set them in here, and another strip on the bottom to keep the cradle from damaging things as well. Again, if we're comparing to other adjustables, those types of things are often plastic and frustratingly cheap, and this is another great example of the difference in build quality. How well do they actually function though? We tested the Repins on countless exercises. I could probably make a full review on just the curl variations I've used them for, which begs the question if I needed to test that many curls, but remember, I did those all for you. We had no issues with curls, by the way, which typically would mean a perfect review from us, but days that end in Y are also for working on that massive chest. The Repins are a well-balanced dumbbell, which is important during all exercises, but becomes more important the heavier you go, like with presses. One of the problems some people have with Iron Master's quick locks is the handle is so long that you have to be careful to make sure your hand is centered on it or the balance can be off. The Repins have a usable handle length of just under 5 inches, which is close enough to an actual fixed dumbbell that it doesn't affect balance. Technically, the handle itself is a little longer, but we'll get to the adder weights in this little extra space in a bit. The Repins feel similar to a fixed dumbbell because their size is similar to one. You can see at 25 pounds, they're more compact and other adjustables are typically larger. At 80 pounds, they're nearly identical to a fixed dumbbell, whereas with many adjustables, the size difference becomes more exaggerated. And at 100 pounds, if your adjustable even goes that heavy, they're again the same as a fixed dumbbell. That similarity in size means they work well for any and all pressing movements. They don't get in the way or affect your range of motion, and the flat ends of the plates means you can set them on your thighs and kick them up or set them down easily. I also like these a lot for rows, not only because of their heavy max weight, but also since the handle doesn't have any internal mechanisms like a twist grip adjustable dumbbell needs to change the weights. That means rep can cut an actual knurl into these rather than the typical light passive knurling of almost every other option. This knurling is fantastic, making this the first time a dumbbell has been worthy of me taking out the macro lens. Insert knurl pour, can I say that word, or will I lose my $3 of ad revenue? Insert adult picture here. It's a clean volcano-style knurl that's grippy without cutting your hands up, and the grip is helped by the 34mm shaft diameter, which matches what you'll find on most fixed dumbbells. I mentioned having some criticisms though, and some of the Repins design elements may be a factor depending on your training. For instance, while the side rails help make these much more durable, they can also get in the way. For something like dumbbell shrugs, if you're using straps, the rails limit how much space you've got to work with, which could be a factor if your hands are very large as well. On lunges, I don't find the rail to be a big factor. The dumbbells don't impact you much more than a typical dumbbell would, but we lunge big dumbbells around here because lunges are our secret weapon for growing a healthy backside, and with smaller dumbbells, there may be more of a difference. On exercises where you typically hold the head of a dumbbell, like a pullover or overhead tricep extension, I find while they still work, it takes a little extra effort to make sure I've rotated and positioned the Repins correctly to get my hands right. You could technically hold on to the rails for those types of exercises, but I'm not about to be the first idiot who hurts himself as I get tired mid-set and accidentally click the weight adjustment pin, slide the rail a little bit, and have to dodge a falling plate. Unlikely, sure, but I'm not much for gambling. Now, something people ask me every time we do one of these reviews is, do they rattle? And yes, every adjustable dumbbell where you're dropping in and pulling weights from a cradle, where you're not physically tightening everything together like Iron Masters, is going to have some rattle. This is okay though. Well, first of all, I hope you're not doing this with your dumbbell, but it reminds me of that old school clang of iron plates. It's not excessive, you won't notice it after you use them for a bit, and you need to have a little space between the plates or you won't be able to get these in and out of the cradle. And since Rep is using a steel rod to keep their plates in place, rather than just dovetails like most others, there's less slack and less sag than even Rep's own quick draws have at half the weight. Where the rattling isn't so great is with the adder weights. I'm not a big fan of these for a few reasons. One, they rattle quite a bit. In fairness, you'll really only notice it on exercises where the dumbbells rotate, like a fly or a delt raise. And even then, it's not a real concern of mine, just something to point out. Like the fact that the spring pin on these is going to scratch up the edge of this lead plate over time. Number two is that I find it hard to trust the spring pins that hold the adders in. Some of that is because I'm worried my kids with their grubby little hands will gum them up. I'm sure Rep has tested them 100,000 times, and to be fair, even in all my drop tests, they've never come out, but when you're about to rep up some big weight, you kick these things up and you hear that clang as they move around, it doesn't exactly help your confidence. And three, I have a love-hate relationship with the pop pin rings. And by that I mean it feels like we're in a committed relationship with how often they touch my hands, and I hate it. Again though, not a huge deal. So yes, they work, I just think they could have been integrated in better. I also hope Rep releases a 1 1/4 pound option like Pepin used to sell so we can have balanced 2.5 pound weight increments. It would also be cool to see them pick up Pepin's kettlebell design since it would work with these plates. To be clear, the Pepin and Rep plates are not compatible, but Rep has already done a ton of work on the Repins that would translate over to that design. Speaking of upcoming things, Rep has a few stands coming for these as well. There's the storage cart, which kind of reminds me of what the substitute teacher would roll in when it was movie day. I'm joking, kind of. But the pegboard is a cool addition, and it looks like you can store quite a bit in and on it. There's also the dumbbell storage stand, and I gotta say, it's gonna be hard to beat any company that throws in a free toaster. Seems like you can do 8 slices at a time with that thing. That one looks to have an adjustable height and a universal design, and I'm sure both of those are going to be really good and will be cheaper than this one since they're imported. This is a prototype from Black Widow, which I have absolutely no affiliation with. I make nothing if you get one of these. I just thought it would be cool to have a 3x3 American-made option, and Dean asked me for some feedback on the design. It's pretty sweet so far. I can set the shelves to an angle or keep them flat. Rep, by the way, suggests you keep them flat. I just angled them for the video, and I bolted the Repins directly to this, but he'll have a universal shelf as well, and since it's made of 3x3 tubing with 1-inch holes, it's modular, so you can bolt all kinds of stuff to it. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description. Now for the drop tests, the moment where I offend a few people by suggesting gym equipment should be durable, because if you're mid-lift and something happens, I don't want to worry about breaking my expensive gear, and I buy this stuff hoping to hand it down to my kids someday. I have drop tested every adjustable dumbbell we've reviewed, not just the ones I know will look good on camera. And I beat on these so much that David Pepin himself DM'd me about it when he saw on our Instagram. Obviously, these tests are a bit dramatic, but I want to see how they'll hold up after many years of use and abuse. And the only way to do that is to go a little overboard. So how'd they do? Well, besides my roof murdering the finish on one of them, which I wish I had thought through better because I had to use touch-up paint on them to get them camera ready, mine are still intact. The only way you're going to break these is with a very heavy drop at an angle, because as you add more weight, the steel bar cantilevers and supports the plates. So to break them, you'd literally have to bend the steel rail. Outside of that, I'd say these are pretty close in durability to Iron Master's Quick Locks, which is probably the reigning king in that department. Where does that leave the Repins overall then? Are they the best option out there? In many ways, yes. I think they're great. They have the best build quality, outstanding durability, they're well balanced, and for many of us, the Repins win based on the fact that they go heavier than many other options. At the same time, they're more expensive as well, and everyone has their own preferences and needs. You may prefer the smaller increments and simpler weight changes of True Laps, or the feel and lack of a cage of Iron Masters. I do think the Repins are fantastic though, so check them out in the links below and let us know what you think about them, and let us know what you want to see in that big dumbbell comparison video. If these aren't for you, check out our other dumbbell reviews here. Thanks to our Patreons for helping to make content like this possible, and thanks for watching.